welcome back to The Notice. My name is TJ Houske, Chief Executive Officer here at OTAVA. And with me today is a good friend and special guest, Brock Hesler. And I'll let him share his story as we get into it. But we're excited this particular episode. We're going to spend some time talking about Hoosiers. So both of us are here now in Indiana. For me, over 20 years. Brock is a native, and we're really excited that a lot of what we're going to talk about today ties back to one of our biggest announcement recently, which is OTAVA's headquarters has transitioned from Ann Arbor, Michigan to Indianapolis. And that was very strategic. And we'll kind of talk about why we did that and what we're doing here locally that really helps kind of substantiate the momentum and those things that we're focused on. So we're really excited to dig into it. All right. Well, Brock, thanks so much for joining. Excited to have you. So welcome.
Thanks,
And
TJ. Does this mean I'm
yeah,
officially an Otavian now?
yeah, you are official. It's official. It's like friends on Facebook.
It's only taken
Which
10 months.
I know, which that statement alone dates us both, which is great. It's kind of like when people change their relationship status on Facebook after they've been married for 20 years. You're like, oh, just found that button, huh?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it works out. But yeah, so let's dig into it. Obviously we're here today to talk a lot about Indiana and the fun things that we're doing here at Otava, and then kind of the intersection between both. And you have a very interesting background over the last over your career, here in Indiana. So I know you've got some very cool perspective. But why don't you tell people a little bit about you and where you came from and what you're excited about?
No, thanks, TJ, and it's great to be here. And I'm excited to be at Otava again, about almost a year into this now, believe it or not. So time flies when you're having fun. And you know how Forrest Gump says, life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Working in the tech industry is much the same as I found, quite honestly. But no, in all seriousness, it's great to be here. Having grown up in Indiana, in kind of 30 miles just northwest of Indianapolis and Lebanon, and that's where I live with my family now. And chose to go to school in Indianapolis. I graduated from Butler University, go Dogs, and then really chose intentionally to set up shop and to start my career and continue my career in and around the Indianapolis area. And again, that was intentional. And so it's been a lot of fun, and look forward to continuing to see what Indianapolis and the state of Indiana can do to move itself forward. There's a lot of momentum, and just excited for the future, not only for the state, but for Otava here within the state of Indiana.
That's awesome. Well, Brock, I think it's fun. Your origin story. Everybody's got a great story about where they started in their career post education and where they thought they would be versus where they are. And it's polarizing, right? You're in tech now in this season of your career, but you started in sports, which is awesome.
Yeah, I did. My degree's in journalism. I never wanted to be a newspaper writer, but I have a lot of respect for those that do. But just always knew that writing was a skill that I could take through to whatever career that I chose. And so, I started working for Indiana Sports Corporation right out of school and worked in media relations for the World Basketball Championships. Was the first time that event was held here within the United States. And then, went on and worked for a company called Choices Inc., which provides mental health services, a not-for-profit. And then went on to work for United Way of Central Indiana and did fundraising for Boone County and kind of was the Boone County lead for United Way of Central Indiana, and then went over into healthcare and worked for Witham Health Services, the county hospital system, based there in Lebanon, and then made another career jump and went to work at the Indiana Chamber of Commerce and spent a little over 10 years there in the membership area and just really helping to develop relationships and build relationships within Indiana and communicate the good work the chamber was doing. And then got called to Otava in August of last year and just having a lot of fun. Again, it's an interesting industry. I love the fact that it's fast paced. I don't do the same thing day in and day out. I learn something new every day. So it's been a lot of fun, and my career journey has been something that I have no regrets on. It's just been really rewarding, and I've met a lot of really great people along the way, and look forward to meeting even new people right in this role and in a different industry. That's what's fun about it is going over to a new industry. You get to meet a lot of other really good people.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's awesome. I love your story. Yeah. And I have the benefit. I knew Brock, for those listening, I knew Brock when he was at the Chamber of Commerce. That's how our relationship started. He was who I worked with for member services as the CEO here. And that's what Brock did. He spent the better part of 10 years with C-levels, just talking about business issues, business needs, business outcomes, goals they're trying to achieve. And, it was really sector agnostic. So he had a wealth of information, and I really valued that. And then like-minded people attract. And so when opportunity presented itself to say, hey, let's marry your experience in business development, your passion for Indiana, with my passion for Indiana and business technology, like what could we do? And that's how we got here a year later. And through that, in the last year, for OTAVA, what's been interesting is, whether it's associations with like the Chamber of Commerce or TechPoint, two different groups that we're actively involved in. One, we sit on the board, or now getting involved in local strategic partnerships. You heard most recently about our big announcement with Scale Computing, Jeff Reedy's company, and then Veeam. In our partnership there, that's an Indianapolis-based company as well, and Jeff's an Indiana guy. Or now what's going on with just tech expansion here. I think OTAVA and its headquarters now being based in Indianapolis for what's coming in new momentum in this market sector is really, it's great timing. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah,
It is.
yeah,
TJ, Indy's special, right? And
yeah,
you know, I shared a little bit about my story and having been in and around Indianapolis. The great thing about Indianapolis is it's big enough to have a ton going on, but still tight knit enough that relationships really matter. And
yep,
like I said before, I've been really lucky to build some great connections over the years, and you can feel the energy here. I mean, people are working together, they're pushing
yep.
boundaries, and they're really thinking about what's next. And so, from an OTAVA perspective, it's a place where we can plug in, help companies solve real challenges, and grow right alongside them. So it's an exciting time to be in Indianapolis and from a broader perspective, state of Indiana.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. Yeah, I think, I think it was second half of last year, one of the board meetings I attended for TechPoint, we were talking about just GDP impact for tech and innovation, here in central Indianapolis. And state of Indiana, really central Indiana, seeks to employ roughly 42,000 net new jobs by 2027, 2028, with a GDP increase to about $64 billion of contribution, yeah, GDP contribution. So when you think about where Indiana's going, and you look at across the nation, zip codes by county and growth rates, you're going to be hard pressed. Hamilton County is growing at a clip that's just as fast as counties in Nashville, Tennessee, and Austin, Texas. And I think the secret's out. The cost of living is great here. People are better, than even the cost of living. And you're seeing a lot of early innovators, entrepreneurial, especially in the tech sector, that are starting to scale out. You got data center expansions going on here with bigger players and Microsoft, Meta, Google. So it's really fascinating, in my mind, to see. And what centrally was known as, cornfields and basketball has and a flyover state has now
Yeah.
become somebody that's a lot more relevant, in my opinion, in the sector, and we're seeing that. So
Yeah.
it's pretty
And
cool.
TJ, you brought up a really good point, and it's the reason I stayed in Indiana. It's about the people, right? And it's
Yep.
the reason you stayed in Indiana, right? Once you moved here. And from a tech perspective, Indiana is gaining recognition, and you just mentioned some of the astounding numbers, right, of what the influx is going to be related to tech jobs, et cetera. But it's really been awesome to watch the tech scene evolve here in Indiana. So, like you mentioned, 10 years ago, we were flying under the radar, and now we've got homegrown success stories, outside investment, and a lot of momentum, and there's serious innovation happening across sectors. If you look, especially in health, IT, cybersecurity, and cloud, and
Yep.
then people are really starting to take notice, and Indiana is now on
Yep.
the radar. And plus, when you pair that with the talent continues to get stronger here. And as you mentioned, people want to live and work in Indiana, and that's fueling a lot of the growth that we're seeing.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think it was probably one of the biggest contributors to my thought process of like, is the timing now, right? I mean, obviously, we've had a lot of different options. Our original, when we did the original capital raise and purchased the first of many companies that make up what is now OTAVA, it was an Ann Arbor-based company, with several data centers across the country, and one of them here in central Indianapolis. And then our next acquisition, took us into the Southwest markets and, Texas, And then we went into the Rocky Mountain region with our third acquisition. And, as we look at, new acquisitions now, one of the things I wanted to really focus in on 5 years into my almost five and a half going towards, geez, my journey here at OTAVA was like, where do we go next? And when you think about where the Midwest is shifting, there's a lot of activity that has transitioned into central Indianapolis. Also, Louisville is another big market. And when you think about it, I see one of the biggest reasons for it is proximity to Chicago. And so, there's a lot of folks in that territory that are starting to treat us as like, Illinois adjacent when you look from a disaster recovery perspective. Ottawa, for us as a business, one of our flagship data centers is right across, it's a bad 5-iron to Lucas Oil Stadium, right? So I think this really checks a lot of boxes for us, and the timing is fantastic with our newest announcements and partnerships. So we've received a lot of early positive feedback from the community of, hey, this is great. You were voted in 2024 as one of the best companies to work in Indianapolis. And now we're starting to double down on that by being as intentional as we possibly can be by sticking our flag in the ground and saying, hey, we're here. And we want to contribute to economic growth. So yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it just makes sense, for OTAVA.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Church Communications, right, who
Yep.
we're partnered with as our parent company. It's based in South Bend, Indiana, have a rich history over 100 plus years in Indiana.
Yep.
And so, Indiana, in the Midwest as a whole, I mean, I would clump this into the whole Midwest, TJ. It's full of companies that are doing really meaningful work. And again, whether
Yep.
that's in healthcare, finance, manufacturing, and they're looking for trusted partners to help them modernize and stay secure. So, throughout the Midwest, the
Yep.
business climate's strong, people value relationships, and there's real drive to innovate. So it's a
Yep.
great fit for how we operate at OTAVA as we look to serve our customers better.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, the Circle City is kind of interesting, right? We really are large enough now that you've got some really great headquartered companies here that are blue chip. And you've got a lot of small business owners as well, mid enterprise, as well. Great healthcare sector. So there's a lot going on there. Big development. I think now you're seeing the influx of, which is everywhere, but you're seeing the influx of artificial intelligence and those kind of focuses. So it's really fascinating, and you look at it. I think for Otavo, when I think about what we can contribute in the Central Indiana market, right? And we're talking about this with our relationships, thanks to Brock, with the Indiana Hospital Association or the Bankers Associations, or our specialty is data protection, and data protection comes in a lot of flavors. But at the end of the day, when your service is at risk, whether it's a cyber event or just natural cause and effect, whether it's earthquake or tornado, or in our case, in our region, it's generally tornadoes, right, in the Midwest. You're looking for a partner that can give you highly reliable services, on hardened infrastructure. And I think Otava is going to be able to continue to do that with better emphasis by being here in Central Indiana and using this flagship data center that we have and the customers that we already have over the last 30 years to scale that out. So that to me is one of the most interesting and exciting pieces of this. And I really look forward to tapping further into the network that we both have here to add value and be amongst companies, in my opinion, that have great high regard for Indiana and respect and scale computing, people-driven technology. Like there's a lot of really great shops, here locally that are doing really great things. And so to be amongst those with the focus of doing that here locally, I think is awesome. So
Yeah, and those partnerships are key, TJ. I mean,
yeah,
you take TechPoint for example. They've been huge in building the tech community and connecting people. The chamber, we mentioned the chamber where I used to work, does a great job of advocating for business-friendly policies. I mean, I think sometimes that side of it gets overlooked because companies wouldn't be in Indiana if it didn't have business-friendly business policies in place. And so, and then the Indiana Hospital Association being the major voice in healthcare, and you mentioned the Bankers Association and so many others, right? You could go on and on and on. And that's what makes, I think, Indiana special, is because there are so many of those types of organizations working collaboratively, right? They're not working in silos. They're working together and reaching out to the business community and saying, come along beside us. Let's continue to make Indiana the best state that it can be. And let's stop being so humble, right? And let's really shout from the mountaintops what Indiana is and what it can be moving forward. So it's going to be fun to see. I mean, a lot of momentum, and the sky's the limit really when it comes down to, what the state can do and what Otava can do to help and be a part of the
yeah,
ecosystem.
yeah, I agree. I mean, Now, another thing to talk about too that I think is just important, and this is in my opinion, it's an early indicator when you look at market growth, but it's the education institutions and the what I call the education infrastructure. And I don't mean public, even though that's incredibly important, but I'm talking about university level education and then the research and funding that's invested there. And when you look, regardless of alma maters, but Ball State is doing some incredibly impressive things with early entrepreneurs development program. That's fantastic. Butler has always been top ranked and doing fantastic things with especially adult education and the ability to scale out like on executive MBAs and those kind of programs. Finance, entrepreneurship, investment, they do a fantastic job. Purdue is Purdue. They've got a fantastic engineering program. IU has a fantastic business program, and medicine in healthcare. So when you look at all of that, and then you got the outliers of DePaul and Marion and Indiana University, or sorry, University of Indianapolis. It's really fantastic. And then there's the sleepers, like Rose-Hulman Institute is one of the top. Like it's ranked up there with MIT. So when you look, I think those things are starting to really pump out and produce really high quality skill that before was leaving the state and essentially moving towards the west or the east. And now they're staying because of the reasons we're saying, like friendly business policy, businesses coming in, expanding their entrepreneurial reach. And so there's many tech companies out there like OTAVA that are being very intentional with we're trying to staff first in Indiana and bring up the tech community, the next generation here. And that's one of my biggest passions is can I create employment opportunities, locally and make a positive economic impact amongst people? I think so. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, you bring up a really good point. So back during my time at the chamber, I had the opportunity to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit on the higher education institutions and really dive down deep into kind of what they're doing
Yeah.
and what their goals are. And I've said for a long time, I would put the higher education institutions in this state up against any state in the country. When you look at the quality of students they're putting out, just the good humans they're putting out, right? They're not only focused on educating, but lifting them up as citizens of the state and of the country. And I think that's important as well. I think that gets overlooked. And so when you talk about, we have Ivy Tech, right, the largest community college in the country, which is just astounding, and the good work they're doing there. And you look at, again, the institutions you mentioned, for example, Trine University puts out just as many, if not more, engineering students than Purdue does every year. And that's phenomenal, right? And have one of the largest esports, organizations and programs in the country. And so there's just so much good momentum going on with innovation. Now you have Purdue and IU with presence in downtown Indianapolis. Who would have thought that would have ever happened, right? They split IUPUI up, and now they have their own separate campuses in downtown Indianapolis. That is only a bonus for businesses in the state, and especially in downtown Indianapolis.
Yep. No, I agree with you. It's my hope. This podcast is a little lighter in nature. I call it fluffy. We weren't digging into anything specific. We're tying this to our announcement and wanted to really focus on just, where are we going? Who are we now? What does it look like? I think that's important when you tune in and you're looking for partners. You're just learning a little bit more in networking. But what I love about today's topic and being able to talk about this is, I really think for a long time, Indiana's been a market where it's one of those best kept secrets. And I don't think it's going to be a secret much longer. You're seeing that there's a lot of intentionality in businesses that are moving in here. And to your point, for what I was saying as well, a lot of it does stem from just education. And I will say, like even at a public education level, Indiana's done pretty well and continues to make those investments. It's not easy. We don't have it all figured out by any stretch, but it's really fascinating to see. And so, I mean, Notre Dame at the top of the state, all the way down. The logos are big in what they're able to do and produce here, and I'm excited. And then it's really fun to see. So it definitely has changed in the last 10 years, I would say. It's been fundamental pivots, and then you have the Indiana Chamber, which Brock, you helped build it, is one of the best in the country. And what it does. Tech Point is unique in and of itself. It's one of the largest economic drivers, to our market. And they're forward thinking in their AI committees and some of the things that they're doing now. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting to see. I mean, OTAVA, what we seek to capitalize on that is to be a large contributor. That's ultimately our goal. Is I'm a big believer that you owe what you know. So if we can be actively engaged in the sector from our discipline, and be able to add value, then we'll make a positive impact, and create opportunities for people. So really fired
Yeah.
up about it.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point. With this announcement and now having the headquarters in Indianapolis, there's more responsibility that comes with that, right? To be a
Yeah.
good corporate citizen, and so I look forward to seeing that play out and just how we continue to evolve and elevate the partnerships that we're able to create. Again, because at the end of the day, this is going to benefit our customers, it's going to benefit our partners around the country. It's going to be a win-win for everybody, and so it's exciting, right? And with that comes great responsibility when you make an announcement like this. And no doubt we're up for the challenge, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And look forward to seeing how it all plays out moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I look forward to it. Well, yeah, thanks so much for spending time with me today and getting to talk about, Hoosierville. and
Right?
I will say, as we bring it in for a close, we're pretty excited. So, first time in 20 years, 20, is it 20 or 25? 25 years or 20 years for the Indiana Pacers?
25 years,
2000. 25
first
years. Yeah,
time.
it was
Yeah.
2000. Yeah, so
I was
first
a
time in
Pacer ball
25
boy
years.
for I was a Pacer ball boy for 2 years when I
There,
was in
there
high
you
school.
go. There,
And
there you
so,
go.
this is pretty exciting for me. And, this team reminds me a lot of the team that, I
Yeah.
was engaged with back then with Vern Fleming and Reggie Miller, Detlef Shrimp, Rick Smits, Dale and Antonio Davis. So this is really special for me. It's a lot of fun because
Yeah.
it's a true team, right? And that's what I
Yeah.
remember back when I was fortunate to be a Pacer ball boy. And so I'll be cheering them on each and every night as they try to win this championship.
We're pretty excited about it, and I'm happy to lose sleep for the next 2.5 weeks rooting them on.
Yeah, right.
So go Pacers. But
Absolutely.
all right, well, until next time, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate having you. And I miss Mo. So what we used to always say as we close them down is do a decision. So see you soon.